In my last video, I covered one point at the end of the video, which is that I approached life as a series of projects, and this was inspired in part by my history with Minecraft and Kerbal Space Program. Now, if you look at these two games, obviously they're sandbox games. They allow you to pick your own path and follow through with it however you want. The framework of which people approach these two games is a framework of projects. If we look at Minecraft, for an example, there's survival and creative mode. Both modes give you unlimited access to an infinite world and infinite things that you could do in that world. So a way that people organize what they do is by splitting it into builds or projects or explorations, things that they want to do. So in essence, projects. Number two, Kerbal Space Program, sometimes described as the Minecraft of space games. I found myself spending hours building rockets, testing things out, trying things out with an objective in mind. So I had an objective, number two, attempts, number three, outcome. And this is usually the format that a project follows as well, right? You have a task, you have a hypothesis, you have a research proposal, you have an engineering design, you have attempts at which you wanted to achieve this goal. So in the case of Minecraft, maybe it's trying to build the thing that you want to build or trying to go the places you want to go. In the case of Kerbal Space Program, maybe it's building a bunch of rockets, failing and failing and failing, and then finally building that perfect rocket and getting those perfect planetary approaches. And in the case of real projects, right, it might be a programming project. It might be trying again and again, getting many bugs in your code, and finally getting the outcome which you want. So today I'm going to cover a philosophy of learning and projects and how I approach projects in general. Because as I said in that video, for me, projects were a very useful way to view life as, because life can be viewed through many lenses and projects is one of them. So let's split this into three categories. So first, let's distinguish between these. What is the difference between a project of learning and a project for the sake of projects? Here, we can make distinctions throughout the entire process. Now, although the process can be viewed in many similar ways, I think it starts at the very beginning, which is the intent. When you intend to do something, you have a certain way of approaching it. And when you intend to learn, you'll approach it differently than a project. With a project, where you're intending to just build a project, your intent is just to build. It may not be to learn to do something in order to build it. It may just be that you're doing whatever is necessary to build or create an idea which you have, which is different than learning, which is that you're approaching it with an open mind and trying to absorb all the knowledge. In this case, you're not aiming to just absorb everything like a sponge, and rather you're just trying to build to an end result. So here we can see at the very beginning, the intent is already different. So the outcome and the process of which you do this will be different. Number two, with learning, you have things split by topics. You want to learn a topic, you want to learn a subject, you want to learn a field. With projects, it's more about solving a problem or achieving a certain objective. So say, for example, I might want to learn aerospace engineering, or I might want to learn physics. In physics, I might want to learn special relativity, for example. In projects, maybe my objective is to find some discrepancy in physics. Now, what's the difference between those? One of these, the objective is to get new research at any cost, or at any cost to some reasonable extent. With this, the objective is to just obtain information, much of which has already been learned by many others. So this might be to do something which has not been done before. Now, you'll see a lot of people who do exploratory projects or projects for the sake of learning, and I'd say that falls under this category. So if you look at things like LeetCode or programming challenges where many people have already done it before and the purpose is for pedagogy, for learning, it falls under this category, But if you're doing a project that has never been done before, maybe you're not well equipped to do this, maybe you don't have previous learning or experience to do it, falls under that. It all comes down to the intent. Now, the process is also different. With learning, typically you'll see rote memorization, you'll see questions that have predetermined answers or answers that are well known. With projects, it's a little bit on the other side. You're making prototypes, you're making, as I said, attempts. Like in engineering, you'll see an engineer make dozens, maybe hundreds of prototypes before they get the object which they desire to make, the objective which they desire to create. But it's not determined at objective 100 you're guaranteed to have an outcome, or at objective 10, at prototype 10 you're determined to have an outcome. That's the difference between learning and projects. With projects, there is no determination, there is no predetermined outcome to what you're making. And with learning, mostly there is. One last thing is also within the process. At a lot of schools nowadays, and throughout academia in general, there is much increased AI usage. Now that depends on your approach to it. Is your approach to use AI to further your research to fill in the gaps that you don't know, or are you using it as a tool to shortcut your learning? Because it all comes down to your intent. If your intent is to learn, by shortcutting your questions with AI usage, that might not help you as much with your intent. But if your intent is to solve a problem that has not been solved before, to do something that has not been done before, sure, use all you've got. Use every tool that you have at your disposal, because your intent is to build and create a solution to some problem. Now, number 3 is where things get a little bit spicy, because here people are saying that maybe AI art is art, and that is something that I'm gonna bring a strong opinion on. So art, I think, is the fundamental expression of the human spirit. I think it is. There are many mediums of art. Some mediums are like game development could be considered a medium of art. Games themselves, like Minecraft, can be argued by some to be a medium of art. At what point does that distinction get drawn? So I'll try to raise an example to make this clear. If you are, let's say, a 5-year-old who takes a pencil and draws a stick figure on a paper, that's art. You're an artist. If you're a 50-year-old, seasoned, talented, second coming of Michelangelo kind of artist, you put a brush on paper and everything springs to life like you imagine it in your head, obviously you're an artist. Now let's go to some more niche type of arts. If you're a Minecraft builder, right? You build structures or things in Minecraft. How does that make you an artist? That's because it's a direct representation of your spirit, of your mind, right? You're directly doing something which has a direct outcome. So you directly interact with your computer, which has a one-to-one outcome of, placing the block. If you're making art through code, right? Your code directly results in the creation of the art. And that's why I think, to some extent, maybe if you're the one making the system which generates a specific type of art, which is a direct representation of what you're thinking, that could be considered art, but only if you are the programmer of the system, because that is a direct creation of what you make. Now, here goes to the second level. So now we see a one-to-one thing. An artist, very bad drawing, but he takes an action which directly results in art. Now, here we can go to another example. Let's say you're somebody who wants a piece of art to be made. So you DM an artist on Instagram or something. You say, hey, I have some description of an art. Then a second layer of interaction is done where the artist takes in the description and then as a direct result of that description creates the art. But by you providing that description and maybe some monetary compensation for that artist making the art, you are not the artist. The same way that you are not the chef for taking food that somebody else made and putting it in the microwave, right? It's the same way that an AI artist is not an artist in that they are putting the description into the machine and the art is the result of the machine directly doing something, right? If we go back to what we said earlier, of art being a direct representation of a human's spirit, of the spirit of creativity found in a human, we can argue that AI art is not art, as it is something that a machine has created on the first order of interaction. Let's say there are orders of interaction. Orders of interaction may be does your action directly result in something being done? I guess that's first order. If your action is resulting in something being done, which results in the art or lack thereof being made, I guess that could be second order. And if we go by this definition, I'd say that AI art is not art. So, what do I do personally in the creative aspect? The creative aspect is just an extension of the learning. Now, if we look at projects specifically, just the second branch, I mentioned that projects could solve many things that have not been done before. It could be an engineering thing. It could be something that solves a long unsolved problem. But this video is about how I personally do this. So as a teenager, how will I fund this? So my funding plan is pretty simple. I'll take a certain amount of money that I need, and I'll have to pay it by the end of the year, either through projects or through some other scheme. Pretty simple. It's like taking a loan. In summary, my project philosophy covers 3 branches: learning, project type projects, and creativity. And creativity can just be attributed to some specific expression of learning. So in the end, there's only 2 distinct areas of projects, which include projects for the sake of learning and projects for the sake of an end goal. And on the channel, you'll probably see something of both, because as I've stated in previous videos, my channel should be a representation of who I am as a person. And as you can see, I've been expressing my ideas, but now is the time to go into projects. This brings me to my very last point in the video, which is documentation. If you are doing a project, or if you're making something, if you're learning something, it's always good to document it. It's always good to, write up a blog post or paper on it, make a video on it, maybe stream it to the public, open source your programming projects. It's good to leave a record because you never know who might be benefiting from it. By extension, I will be documenting most of my creative and project-based pursuits on the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next project. Okay, for those of you who've stayed until the end of the video, here's a little bonus segment. Earlier in the video, I mentioned I have to make money to pay off some of my projects. So here's one way that I've started to do that. And number one, this is not financial advice. My stance on this is I will not make an opinion on anything that's going on. I'll just state, here's what I see, and here's what I'm trying to take away from it. So, a couple of weeks ago, I looked at the news and I saw the supreme leader of Iran was assassinated. I figured there was only a couple of ways that this could go from here. Either a resolution to the conflict would happen or escalations would happen. I thought that escalation would probably happen. They control a large amount of oil in a small area which they are able to impose control on. Alongside that, they also have their drones, which they are able to cheaply manufacture, where the United States has to counter with multi-million-dollar missiles. So with those things in mind, I entered USO, the ticker for the United States Oil Fund, at $85. And I've recently took an exit on that position at around 116. Looking at the news, I am reasonably certain that an escalation will most likely happen in the near future. This is my personal opinion. I think this is what's possibly going to happen, and that is how I decided to start trying to make a little bit of money. Because although I am anti-war, I figured if this is going to happen and I can't do anything about it, I might as well make some money from it to fund things that might improve the world, like my projects, which I'm trying to do to help benefit everybody. So there is my due diligence in that regards. I think Iran will probably not back down. In the coming weeks, hopefully I will have some videos out that are covering less depressing things than the political situation and covering some cool new projects that I'm working on. As I said, second category, doing whatever it takes to solve problems to help benefit the world. Thank you for watching.